For years, royal watchers assumed that if King Charles ever needed someone to help steady the monarchy during a difficult period, the natural focus would fall on Queen Camilla or perhaps even Prince William. But a quiet decision emerging from the heart of the institution is telling a very different story. Because the royal figure now being entrusted with one of the most sensitive responsibilities connected to the crown is neither the queen consort nor the future king. It's Princess Anne. And once you understand why, the implications become impossible to ignore. When people think about power inside the British monarchy, they usually picture crowns, state banquets, balcony appearances, and elaborate ceremonies broadcast around the world. Those public moments create the image of royal authority, but according to many constitutional observers, the real machinery of monarchy operates far away from the cameras, inside private meetings, confidential briefings, and documents that never become front-page news. And that is precisely why recent attention surrounding Princess Anne has generated so much discussion among royal commentators. Because this is not simply a story about another title, another ceremony, or another honor being added to an already distinguished royal career. Instead, many observers believe it reflects something much deeper about how King Charles III views trust, responsibility, and the future stability of the institution he now leads. The timing alone has raised questions. Over the past year, the monarchy has faced challenges unlike any it has experienced in decades. King Charles has continued carrying out his constitutional duties while also navigating significant health concerns. At the same time, Catherine, Princess of Wales, has been focused on her own recovery, creating additional pressure on senior working royals. Suddenly, the carefully balanced system that normally distributes responsibilities across the family has found itself operating under unusual strain. And that naturally led many people to ask a simple question. If circumstances require additional support behind palace walls, who does the king truly rely upon? At first glance, the answer might seem obvious. Prince William is the heir to the throne. He represents the future of the monarchy and is already preparing for the enormous responsibilities that will one day come with becoming king. Yet several royal commentators have pointed out that William currently occupies a unique position. He is not only the Prince of Wales, but also a husband supporting his wife through recovery and a father raising 3 young children during an intensely public period of family life. That combination creates a challenge. Because while William is unquestionably central to the monarchy's future, there are only so many responsibilities one person can absorb at a single moment. And that is where Princess Anne enters the story. Unlike many public figures who gradually build influence through publicity campaigns or media attention, Anne's reputation has been forged over decades of consistent service. She rarely dominates headlines, rarely seeks personal attention, and rarely participates in the kind of public disputes that often consume modern celebrity culture. Yet inside royal circles, that very reputation has become one of her greatest strengths. The more analysts examine her role, the more one theme keeps appearing. Reliability, not excitement, not popularity, reliability, and in times of institutional uncertainty, that may be the most valuable quality of all. Several commentators have noted that Anne possesses something few members of the royal family can claim. She has spent virtually her entire life observing the monarchy operate from the inside. She witnessed the reign of Queen Elizabeth II at close range, watched major constitutional events unfold in real time, and developed relationships with generations of political leaders, diplomats, military figures, and Commonwealth representatives. That experience cannot be manufactured. It cannot be learned from a briefing document, and it cannot be replaced overnight. But perhaps even more important is something rarely discussed publicly. Princess Anne has never appeared interested in accumulating power for herself. That might sound like a strange observation, but within institutions, it often becomes a decisive advantage. People tend to trust individuals who are viewed as serving the system rather than serving themselves. Throughout her royal career, Anne has cultivated an image of duty rather than ambition, work rather than self-promotion, responsibility rather than personal advancement. And that distinction matters, because when authority is entrusted to someone widely perceived as impartial, resistance tends to disappear. There are no competing factions rallying around Anne. There are no serious suggestions that she seeks a larger public role for personal gain. Instead, She is frequently viewed as a stabilizing presence whose primary concern is the continuation of the institution itself. And according to many royal observers, King Charles understands that better than anyone. Yet this is where the story becomes even more fascinating, because Anne's growing significance did not begin with Charles. In many ways, the groundwork appears to have been established years earlier during the reign of Queen Elizabeth II herself. The late Queen was famously careful about whom she trusted with important responsibilities. Throughout her 70-year reign, she developed a reputation for observing people closely, rewarding loyalty quietly, and making decisions based on long-term performance rather than short-term popularity. And when historians examine the royal family during those decades, they repeatedly find Princess Anne positioned at the center of difficult assignments, delicate diplomatic engagements, and responsibilities requiring unusual discretion. That pattern did not emerge by accident, which raises another intriguing possibility. Was Queen Elizabeth already preparing and for a larger institutional role long before the public ever realized it? Because if that was the case, then what we're witnessing today may not be a sudden development at all. It may actually be the final stage of a strategy that began years before Charles ever became king. And once that possibility enters the conversation, a much larger question starts to emerge. If Princess Anne is being entrusted with increasing responsibility during one of the monarchy's most challenging periods, what exactly does that reveal about where real confidence inside the institution truly resides? And perhaps more importantly, what does it mean for everyone else around her? To understand why Princess Anne's position appears stronger today than at any other point in her royal career, it helps to look beyond the headlines and focus on a series of decisions that unfolded quietly over several years. Because while much of the public conversation has centered on King Charles, Prince William, Queen Camila, and the future direction of the monarchy, another story was developing in the background. And according to many royal observers, that story may have been laying the foundation for the situation we see today. What makes this particularly fascinating is that none of these developments attracted major attention when they first happened. Individually, they appeared routine. Collectively, however, they seem to tell a very different story. And that story begins with Queen Elizabeth II. Throughout her 70-year reign, Elizabeth developed a reputation for thinking decades ahead. Unlike politicians who often focus on election cycles, monarchs must think in terms of generations. Every decision is measured not only by how it affects the present, but also by how it shapes the future stability of the institution itself. That long-term mindset became especially important during the Queen's final years. By that stage, several challenges were becoming impossible to ignore. Prince Harry had stepped away from royal duties and relocated to California. Prince Andrew had become increasingly controversial following a series of damaging scandals. The pool of senior working royals available to support the crown had become significantly smaller than it once was, and that created a problem. Because constitutional monarchies depend on continuity, there must always be trusted individuals capable of stepping in when circumstances require it. The institution cannot simply pause because one member is unavailable. Someone must always be ready, and according to many royal historians, Queen Elizabeth recognized that reality long before most people did. That realization eventually led to one of the most significant constitutional adjustments of her final reign. When legislation was updated to ensure that Princess Anne and Prince Edward could continue serving as counselors of state, many members of the public barely noticed. The headlines were relatively modest. The language was technical. The political debate was limited. But inside royal circles, the significance was impossible to miss. Because the decision effectively strengthened the role of two of the monarchy's most trusted working royals while simultaneously reducing uncertainty about who could perform important constitutional functions when needed. Observers immediately noticed something else. Anne's inclusion felt different, not because she outranked others, but because of the reputation she had spent decades building. By that point, Anne was already widely viewed as one of the hardest working members of the royal family. Year after year, she consistently carried out hundreds of engagements with little fanfare and virtually no controversy. While media attention frequently shifted toward younger royals, Anne continued doing what she had always done: showing up, completing the work, and moving on to the next responsibility. That consistency became her greatest asset, and perhaps her greatest source of influence. Because influence inside institutions is rarely created by dramatic speeches. More often, it is earned through reliability. The person who repeatedly proves they can be trusted eventually becomes the person everyone turns to when circumstances become difficult. And many commentators believe that is exactly what happened with Anne. Yet another development reinforced that perception. King Charles's coronation. For millions watching around the world, the ceremony represented tradition, pageantry, and history. But royal observers often pay attention to smaller details hidden within major events. They study positions, roles, assignments, and symbolism. And one particular decision stood out. Charles selected and to serve as gold stick in waiting during the coronation procession. To many viewers, it may have appeared ceremonial, but royal historians immediately understood the symbolism. The position historically represents personal protection and trust. In simple terms, it was one of the clearest public demonstrations of confidence the king could make. And suddenly a pattern began emerging. First came decades of service, then constitutional responsibilities, then elevated ceremonial significance, then increasing visibility during crucial moments. At what point does a pattern stop being coincidence? That question began circulating among royal commentators, because the evidence increasingly suggested that Anne occupied a unique place within the monarchy's internal structure. Not above William, not replacing Charles, not competing with Camilla, but serving a different function entirely: a stabilizer, a safeguard, a trusted institutional figure whose primary value comes from her ability to keep the machinery of monarchy functioning smoothly regardless of external pressures. And that distinction matters more than many people realize. Because while headlines often focus on popularity, institutions tend to prioritize dependability. Popularity can change. Trust is much harder to earn. Meanwhile, another development was unfolding that made Anne's position even more important. The future of the monarchy itself was gradually shifting toward Prince William and Catherine. As public attention increasingly focused on the Prince and Princess of Wales, the demands placed upon them continued growing. Every appearance generated international coverage. Every statement attracted scrutiny. Every decision became front-page news. That level of attention creates enormous pressure, which is why several royal experts have argued that figures like and perform an essential role behind the scenes. They absorb responsibility. They provide experience. They offer continuity. And perhaps most importantly, they create breathing room for the next generation. In that sense, Anne's growing influence may not simply be about supporting King Charles. It may also be about protecting the future reign of Prince William. And if that interpretation is correct, then her role becomes even more significant than many initially assumed. Because suddenly, this is no longer just a story about an experienced royal receiving additional responsibilities. It's a story about how the monarchy is preparing itself for the years ahead. And once that possibility enters the conversation, another question begins to emerge. If Princess Anne has become one of the institution's most trusted figures, where exactly does that leave Queen Camilla? Because while Anne's responsibilities appear to have expanded steadily over time, many observers have noticed that Camilla's position seems fundamentally different. She may hold one of the highest titles in the monarchy, but does title automatically translate into influence? Or are two very different forms of power operating behind palace walls? And that is where the story becomes considerably more complicated. What makes the contrast between Princess Anne and Queen Camilla so fascinating is that, on paper, many people would assume the opposite situation should exist. After all, Camilla is the queen consort. She stands beside King Charles at major state occasions, accompanies him during significant royal events, and occupies one of the highest-ranking positions in the entire institution. From a distance, that appears to place her at the center of royal influence. Yet many royal observers have increasingly argued that titles and influence are not always the same thing. And that distinction may explain why so much attention has recently focused on Anne's growing importance. Because throughout royal history, there have often been two different forms of power operating simultaneously. One is public and highly visible. The other is quieter, less glamorous, and often hidden behind palace walls. The public sees ceremonies, processions, speeches, and photographs. The institution itself, however, depends upon trusted relationships, accumulated experience, and individuals who can be relied upon when circumstances become difficult. When viewed through that lens, Anne's position starts to look very different. Unlike many senior royals, she has spent decades building credibility across virtually every corner of the institution. Government officials know her. Military leaders know her. Commonwealth representatives know her. Palace staff know her. Successive prime ministers have watched her perform royal duties year after year without creating unnecessary controversy or distraction. That kind of reputation becomes incredibly valuable, especially during periods of uncertainty. And uncertainty is something the monarchy has faced in abundance over the last several years. First came the departure of Prince Harry from royal duties. Then came the continuing fallout surrounding Prince Andrew. More recently, health challenges affecting both King Charles and Catherine, Princess of Wales, created new pressures that nobody could have fully anticipated. Suddenly, stability became one of the institution's most valuable assets. And whenever institutions seek stability, they tend to turn toward the people they trust most. That reality has led some commentators to suggest that Anne's influence today is less about formal rank and more about institutional confidence. The monarchy knows exactly what it gets with Anne. There are no surprises, no dramatic public feuds, no shifting priorities, no questions about commitment, only service. And that consistency has become increasingly important as public expectations surrounding the royal family continue evolving. Yet there may be another reason Anne's role resonates so strongly with both the public and the institution itself. Her story is fundamentally different from many other royal narratives. Unlike figures whose paths have been defined by succession, marriage, or controversy, Anne's position has largely been earned through decades of work. She was never expected to become monarch. She was never viewed as the future of the crown. She was never presented as the central character of royal life. And perhaps that is precisely why people trust her, because there is no obvious personal ambition attached to her role. When Anne undertakes responsibilities, most observers assume she is doing so because the institution requires it rather than because she seeks additional recognition. That perception creates a level of credibility that is extremely difficult to manufacture. And it may explain why public opinion toward and has remained remarkably strong even as attitudes toward other members of the royal family have fluctuated over the years. But the story becomes even more interesting when we examine how Prince William and Catherine fit into the picture. Because despite endless media speculation about power struggles and rivalries, there is little evidence that Anne's growing prominence creates tension with the Prince and Princess of Wales. In fact, many commentators argue the opposite. Anne's position may actually strengthen William's future prospects. Think about the challenge William currently faces. He is preparing for a future reign while simultaneously supporting Catherine, raising 3 children, managing global scrutiny, and carrying increasing constitutional responsibilities. Every move he makes is analyzed. Every appearance generates headlines. Every decision is examined through the lens of his eventual kingship. That level of pressure would be enormous under normal circumstances. Under current circumstances, it becomes even greater, which is why the presence of a trusted and experienced figure like, and maybe more valuable than ever. She provides continuity, she provides experience, she provides institutional memory, and perhaps most importantly, she provides support without competing for attention. Several royal experts have noted that William appears to have enormous respect for Anne's work ethic and judgment. That relationship matters because it suggests the monarchy's present and future leadership structures may be working together more closely than many outsiders realize. And if Anne is helping provide stability during this transitional period, then her role becomes about far more than individual responsibility. It becomes about safeguarding the next chapter of the monarchy itself. Yet while Anne's growing influence appears to strengthen the institution internally, it inevitably raises questions about others positioned around the king, particularly Queen Camila, because regardless of how one views Camilla's role, the contrast is difficult to ignore. One figure occupies the highly visible position beside the monarch. The other increasingly appears to occupy a position of extraordinary trust within the machinery that keeps the institution functioning. Those are not necessarily competing roles, but they are very different roles. And that difference may reveal something important about how King Charles approaches leadership, because throughout his reign, Charles has repeatedly signaled that he values experience, duty, and long-term service. Those qualities have shaped many of his decisions. They have influenced how responsibilities are distributed, and according to some commentators, they may also explain why Anne's importance appears to be growing rather than diminishing. But perhaps the most revealing clue of all comes from the late Queen Elizabeth herself. Because the more historians examine Elizabeth's final years, the more they notice signs that she may have been quietly positioning and for precisely this moment. And if that interpretation is correct, then what appears to be a recent development may actually be the continuation of a plan that began long before King Charles ever ascended the throne. Which raises a remarkable question. Was Princess Anne's rise to this position of trust something that Charles created? Or was it something Queen Elizabeth spent years preparing the monarchy to accept? And once we start looking at the evidence surrounding Elizabeth's final decisions, the answer becomes far more intriguing than many people realize. What makes Queen Elizabeth's final years so important to this story is that they may provide the clearest explanation for why Princess Anne now occupies such a uniquely trusted position within the monarchy. Because when historians look back at the closing chapter of Elizabeth's reign, they do not simply see an aging monarch preparing for the future. They see someone carefully strengthening the institution she had spent her entire life protecting. And the more closely people examine those decisions, the harder it becomes to ignore a striking pattern. Again and again, Anne appears at the center of it. For decades, Queen Elizabeth had a front-row seat to the strengths and weaknesses of every senior member of the royal family. She observed how individuals responded under pressure, how they handled public scrutiny, and how they managed responsibilities when circumstances became difficult. Few people in modern history had a better understanding of what the job truly required. That experience gave her a unique perspective, because while the public often focuses on charisma, popularity, or media attention, monarchs tend to evaluate people differently. They look for consistency, reliability, loyalty, the ability to perform difficult duties without creating additional problems. And if there was one member of the royal family who repeatedly demonstrated those qualities, it was Princess Anne. Throughout the later decades of Elizabeth's reign, and became known as the royal who could be sent anywhere and trusted to deliver results. Whether the assignment involved diplomatic engagements, Commonwealth visits, military functions, or charitable responsibilities, she developed a reputation for approaching every task with the same level of professionalism. No drama, no distractions, no complaints, just work. Over time, that reputation became one of the most valuable assets the monarchy possessed. And according to many royal commentators, Queen Elizabeth understood exactly how important that asset would become. As challenges surrounding the royal family intensified during the final years of her reign, questions about the institution's future became increasingly difficult to avoid. The departure of Prince Harry, the controversies surrounding Prince Andrew, and growing public scrutiny of the monarchy all contributed to an environment that looked very different from the one Elizabeth had inherited decades earlier. The monarchy was entering a period of transition, and transitions create uncertainty, which is why several historians believe Elizabeth was quietly preparing safeguards long before the public realized what was happening. One of the most significant aspects of those preparations involved ensuring that experienced and trusted figures would remain available to support the crown regardless of future circumstances. It was not enough to rely solely on titles or succession plans. The institution needed individuals capable of carrying responsibilities when unexpected challenges emerged. And Anne fit that description perfectly. What makes this even more interesting is that Elizabeth's confidence in and was never expressed through dramatic public declarations. That simply was not Elizabeth's style. Instead, she communicated trust through responsibilities, through assignments, through opportunities to represent the crown in situations where failure was not an option. Each responsibility became another signal. Each assignment became another indication. And over time, those signals accumulated. By the end of Elizabeth's reign, Anne had effectively become one of the monarchy's most experienced operational figures, someone who understood not only royal traditions, but also the practical realities required to keep the institution functioning. That experience would soon become invaluable, because once Charles became king, he inherited not only the crown, but also a dramatically different environment from the one his mother had managed for most of her reign. Public expectations had changed. Media scrutiny had intensified. Social media had transformed how royal stories spread across the world. At the same time, Charles faced personal challenges that previous monarchs rarely discussed publicly. Suddenly, the need for trusted support became more important than ever. And that is where many observers believe Elizabeth's long-term planning began paying dividends. Instead of building an entirely new support structure from scratch, Charles could rely on someone who already possessed decades of experience, institutional knowledge, and public credibility. Someone who understood how the monarchy functioned at its deepest levels. Someone who had essentially been preparing for this moment for years. Princess Anne. Yet perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Anne's rise is how naturally it appears to have happened. There were no dramatic announcements, no major palace campaigns, no aggressive efforts to elevate her profile. Instead, her influence seems to have expanded through a gradual accumulation of trust. And in many ways, that may be why the public response has been so positive. People tend to be skeptical when power appears to be pursued. They are often far more accepting when responsibility appears to be earned. Anne's reputation was built through decades of visible service rather than self-promotion, which makes her current position feel less like a political decision and more like the natural result of a lifetime of commitment. That perception has become particularly important at a moment when the monarchy is trying to balance tradition with modernization. Because while the institution continues evolving, it still depends upon figures who embody its core values. Duty, service, continuity, responsibility. Few royals are associated with those qualities more consistently than Anne. And that may explain why so many commentators believe her role extends beyond simply assisting King Charles. Some even argue that she represents a bridge between generations, a link connecting the era of Queen Elizabeth II to the future reign of Prince William. If that interpretation is correct, then Anne's importance becomes even greater than many initially assumed. Because she is not simply helping manage the present, she may also be helping prepare the monarchy for what comes next. And that brings us to perhaps the most fascinating question of all. If Princess Anne has become one of the institution's most trusted and respected figures, what does the British public actually think about it? Because public support has always been one of the monarchy's greatest sources of strength, and recent reactions may reveal far more about Anne's position than any palace statement ever could. And once we look at how the public, royal experts, and even Prince William himself appear to view Anne's growing influence, the full picture becomes much clearer than anyone expected. The more the public has learned about Princess, and over the years, the more her reputation seems to have strengthened rather than faded. In an era when public figures are constantly scrutinized, criticized, and reevaluated, that is a remarkable achievement. Most members of major institutions experience fluctuations in public perception. Some enjoy periods of popularity before facing backlash. Others struggle to maintain relevance as circumstances change. Yet, Anne has largely avoided those cycles, and many royal observers believe there is a simple reason why. People know what to expect from her. For decades, she has presented the same image to the public. She works. She fulfills her responsibilities. She avoids unnecessary drama. And she rarely appears interested in promoting herself. That consistency has created a level of trust that few public figures manage to achieve over an entire lifetime. Recent polling and public commentary have repeatedly reflected that reality. While different surveys produce different results, and consistently ranks among the most respected members of the royal family. What is particularly interesting is that this respect often comes from people with very different opinions about the monarchy itself. Even critics of the institution frequently acknowledge her dedication and work ethic. That kind of credibility cannot be created overnight. It is earned over years, sometimes decades, and it may explain why so many people have responded positively to reports suggesting that Anne is playing an increasingly important role during a challenging period for the monarchy. But public support is only part of the story. What may be even more significant is how Anne is viewed by those inside the institution. Throughout recent years, Prince William and Catherine have increasingly become the focus of discussions about the monarchy's future. They represent the next generation of leadership and carry enormous expectations as they prepare for the responsibilities that lie ahead. Every appearance they make is examined for clues about how the future reign of William might unfold. And within that conversation, and occupies a uniquely important position, because she represents something neither William nor Catherine can yet possess: decades of institutional memory. She remembers events that younger royals know only through briefings and historical records. She witnessed crucial moments of modern royal history firsthand. She observed how Queen Elizabeth navigated crises, how governments changed, and how public expectations evolved over time. That perspective makes her incredibly valuable, not because she represents the future, but because she understands the lessons of the past. And successful institutions often depend upon individuals who can bridge those two worlds. Several commentators have suggested that Anne's greatest contribution may not be any specific responsibility she carries today. Instead, it may be her ability to provide guidance, continuity, and perspective at a moment when the monarchy is balancing multiple challenges simultaneously. King Charles is managing the demands of his reign while confronting personal health concerns. Catherine continues focusing on recovery while gradually returning to public duties. Prince William is balancing royal responsibilities with family commitments while preparing for his eventual role as king. Each of those realities creates pressure, and in environments where pressure is increasing, trusted support becomes invaluable. That may be why Anne's growing prominence feels less like a temporary arrangement and more like part of a broader strategy for stability. A strategy built around experience. A strategy built around trust. A strategy built around ensuring that the institution continues functioning effectively regardless of the challenges it faces. What makes this particularly fascinating is that none of it appears accidental. When the various pieces are placed together, a larger picture begins to emerge. The confidence Queen Elizabeth showed in and during her final years. The responsibilities and accumulated over decades. The respect she commands within the institution. The support she appears to receive from King Charles. The value her experience provides to Prince William and Catherine. Individually, each factor is significant. Together, they paint a compelling portrait of a royal figure whose importance may be greater than many people realized. And perhaps that is the real story. Not a sudden rise, not a dramatic power struggle, not an overnight transformation, but the gradual recognition of someone who spent an entire lifetime preparing for moments exactly like this. Because while public attention often gravitates toward the most visible figures in the monarchy, institutions tend to rely on something different. They depend on individuals who remain steady when circumstances become uncertain. Individuals who place duty above attention. Individuals who continue showing up year after year regardless of whether cameras are watching. For many royal observers, Princess and embodies those qualities better than almost anyone else in the modern royal family. Which is why this moment feels so significant, at a time when the monarchy is adapting to new realities, confronting new challenges, and preparing for the future. One of its most trusted figures is not the person generating the most headlines. It is the person who has quietly spent decades earning confidence behind the scenes. And that may ultimately explain why King Charles appears so comfortable placing increasing trust in his sister. Because when institutions face uncertainty, they rarely turn toward the loudest voices in the room. They turn toward the people who have already proven they can be trusted. And if recent developments are any indication, Princess Anne has spent a lifetime doing exactly that. As the monarchy moves through one of the most important transitional periods of the modern era, attention will naturally remain focused on King Charles, Prince William, and Catherine, Princess of Wales. Yet behind many of the institution's most important decisions may stand a figure whose influence has been built not through titles or publicity, but through decades of service, loyalty, and unwavering dedication to duty. And perhaps that is why so many commentators believe the story is far bigger than Princess and herself. Because the question is no longer whether she is trusted. The question is what her growing role reveals about how the monarchy intends to secure its future. And that's what makes this development so fascinating. While headlines often focus on the most visible members of the royal family, the real story may be unfolding through the quiet rise of one of its most dependable figures. Do you believe Princess Anne has become the monarchy's most trusted royal, or do you think her growing influence is being overstated? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join us again for more analysis of the stories, decisions, and power shifts shaping the future of the British monarchy. Until next time, thanks for watching.